he is an educator. He's educating the masses in these topics. And today he's taking us to crypto school and will talk to us about the NFT space. Here is Diego Borgo directly from Lisbon, I think.
What's up, Demetsko? Hey, thanks for having me. Nice hoodie. I'll sit, I'll hang out.
How are you like?
Cool. How we doing? I mean, how dope is to be in a place like that where we got Web3 in the game now, right? I was just giving an interview outside from the people from the organization, like what I'm feeling about the event and how it's going, and it's amazing to see, you know, those words merging and getting closer together. I tend to say that Web 2 is an evolution, Web 3 is an evolution of Web 2, not a replacement, right? A lot of what we talk within the space is that it's a replacement, it's Dan and us, and I don't believe that. I think that that's exactly how you know, this space is gonna evolve, so I'm super stoked to be here. Yeah, we will talk today about how 5 steps for brands entering the NFT space. This is a very tactical, you know, very like step-by-step type of talk. I want you to get as much value as possible out of this. I don't want to be, you know, talking about blue sky scenarios and yalla about concepts. I'm talking out of experience. I'm talking, you know, from the stuff I've done, from the stuff I've seen. I've been consulting brands for the last 8 years in digital marketing, digital strategy, and branding. I've been working within the NFT space for about 1.5 years now. I've worked with Adidas, I've worked with Prada, I'm working with Salesforce. I've, you know, upskilled brands like Shell, L'Oreal. I work with Volkswagen as well. So a lot of the stuff I'm saying here is not what I heard on podcasts or what I read on articles. That actually stuff I had my hands on, and I am in you know, in rooms in which I see those conversations happening and the struggles and issues that those brands are going through. So just wanted to give that short intro before. For who might know me or might not, I go around digitally as this alien that you see on the screen. So if you want to connect or, you know, be in touch with me, you can pull up your phone right now and scan the QR code. I aim to, you know, bring a lot of the stuff that I've learned through NFT Twitter and crypto Twitter to LinkedIn. So, you know, I know for a lot of people that here are specifically in this corner that are degens from the space might be wondering what the fuck I'm doing on LinkedIn, which is a boring and boomer platform. But I believe that that's the way we're going to get there, right? I believe that if we are able to translate the message from the madness of NFT Twitter, from the madness of crypto Twitter in a manner that everybody can understand, it's going to be the way we all going to get where we want to get. And it's going to be the way that we're going to be the masses. We're going to bring the masses and we're going to go towards mainstream adoption. So that's me. The first step, let's start from there. You know, I know branding is my background, digital strategy and marketing is my background. So I start from a brand strategy perspective. Every time I engage with a brand, you know, that's the first thing I talk. I want to understand whether they are looking into their brand strategy, if they're connecting their NFT, you know, movement or action or program, whatever you want to call, with their brand strategy, right? It's really important. And there's 3 points on why I believe that to be that important, right? The first one is, as soon as you connect your, you know, project with your brand strategy, immediately there are 3 things that come along with that are extremely important for the long-term success. The first thing is the long-term thinking, right? Brand strategies are built between 5 to 10 years in the future. So as soon as you connect to that, you bring your project or your activation under a pillar which underpins the future of where the brand's headed. So that's really important to make you think long-term, but also to, you know, sort of like bring you to the right rooms, right? So that is also connected to easier selling. So I really believe, for example, that as soon as you bring your project connected to the brand strategy of the company you're working for, it's going to be much easier for you to sell the idea inside. A lot of people that I engage with and you know, that are building for brands, Fortune 500 or smaller brands, they have a hard time to sell in. Obviously, because one, we are early. There's a lot of, you know, hate out there on the media, and a lot of people just think that it's just about JPEGs. It's just about apes on chain and expensive things that don't make sense. So it's really hard to get traction on certain brands because, you know, you're not necessarily being in the right rooms and tailoring that with your brand strategy, for example. So easier selling is the second point. Brand consistency is really important. Who is from the space or who has been around for a while has seen a lot of brands coming a bit off brand when they do NFT projects. So, being connected with the brand strategy, again, get the brand people in the room, look at that very big 100-page deck that covers all the brand strategy and then look back from there and reverse engineer on how you can connect your project with it. So, that's kind of like the first step I always do when I work with brands. The second one is finding your why, which is a bit more philosophical, is a bit more, goes more on the opportunity side of it, right? So a couple questions I ask while doing that is, why are we doing this, right? What is the motivation behind? Do we want to follow the hype? Do we want to tick a box? Do we want to find new ways on which our brand can communicate and connect with customers? Do we want to build community? Do we want to build new revenue streams? Like, why are we doing this, right? Do we really know why we are doing this before we start building on top? So that's something that, I always tend to go through and get, then to start thinking about. The second thing, which, is fundamental, because I believe that as Web3 technology, we are now sitting in the mid-90s. And, this whole thing is just about to blow up. We don't know how long it's going to take. We don't know whether it's going to be 2, 3, 4, 5 years, but it's going to blow up. It's a fact. Right? It's not the pinky beanie guy that's telling you that. You got to look at where the smart money is being invested right now, right? Where are the funds? Where are the big companies investing their money? Everybody's coming into Web3, right? So are we thinking big enough, right? Are we having a very clear understanding on what this is all about and how can that potentially change the way we do business as a brand, as a company, as a startup, as an entrepreneur, as a founder? And the next thing is, more philosophical, which is, could that change the world for better, right? Can we look into using this new technology and new platforms to change the world for better? Can we look into social impact? Can we look into diversity and inclusion? Can we look into things that matter to everyone else and use our brand as a platform and use this technology as a medium to help them getting there, right? Or to build community around a cause so we can build brand on top of that. One great example I use that not a lot of people talk about, but is a good mix between the so-called metaverse and NFTs, which is this. I'm gonna play the video around and talk over. So Unilever is a brand that you might think initially kind of like, I'm not Gucci, I'm not Adidas, I'm not Nike. How do I do dope shit with a brand that doesn't have something that's really exciting? For example, toothpaste, right? Toothpaste is something that is not the most interesting product out there. And a lot of people might be struggling to understand what is in for them because their product is not as exciting as the big brands that we are seeing out there. So Unilever has a brand called Close Up. Close Up has a very strong brand strategy and brand values that is bringing people closer, right? That's all it stands about. And freshness on your breath is a way of doing so. And what they've done in the central end, which is really exciting, is that they tackle the problem that a lot of people live in countries where they cannot get married because they are from the same gender, right? Extremely important topic, right? So what the brand has done, they created a space within the central end where people can get married, no matter where they are, what gender they are, could be anyone, anything, right? And a way of using NFT technology within that activation was the certificate of marriage was an NFT. So you have the sort of like the proof of marriage, if you will, where now you had a cool activation without putting your product at the foreground. You didn't see any toothpaste flying around, but you stand for what the brand stands for. You give a very strong brand message and you tell an incredible story that potentially, or in a small scale, can help us making the world a better place. Right? So how exciting is now for us marketeers, because I am one, being a marketeer since I was 16 years old, now that we are looking into opportunities to be able to tell stories again, to connect with, not consumers, not targets, not numbers, but to connect to people again in a manner that we can create impact. And that's what I'm so excited about NFTs. That is why I'm so excited about the metaverse and all of that, because we can do that and we can do that at scale because everything's digital. The next thing I go through is a lot about ideation. So, as soon as you get in the room, the first place you need to come from is where everything's possible. especially in the metaverse, right? When we think and talk about the metaverse, I know we are super early. I know the Decentraland Sandbox aren't the best experiences out there because still tech didn't caught up, but everything's possible from a creative perspective, right? You don't have laws of physics. Obviously, you have adoption. Obviously, you have technology that's still on the way, and we are not there. But let's start from a place where everything's possible, and the only limitation you have is creativity. So when we start thinking about it, how do we go, right? And then I run them through this framework I have. Super simple, not rocket science. Is what can you do now? Super low-hanging fruit. You can try, experiment something. Don't need to have a whole team. Don't need to, have crazy budget, crazy approvals. But what can you do now to start understanding a little bit more about the space? Small step, experimentation, exploration. And then after that, what could we do next, right? What could be a cool thing for us to do? Launch a membership program, launch a collection, or anything within that space that demands more time, more resources, a team, approval, and has a bigger, a bigger thing behind it. For example, what Adidas has done back then, right, in December last year, like that will be a next example for me. And then the later is, what could we do that could indeed change the future of this company forever, right? What could we do? And again, this is ideation, brainstorming, right? Blue sky thinking. What can we do that could change how we operate this business, right? So think about what Nike has done with Artifact. They went there and bought Artifact early December because they know where the space is headed. They have a finger in the pulse in the culture. They made a very bold statement by putting Artifact's logo right beside their core brand. So you have Nike, Converse, Jordan, and Artifact, right? So that's a next and that's a later type of thing, right? This can change their business model forever. And from my perspective, Nike is number one now when it comes to that element of fashion and NFTs and everything. And everybody's going to fight for the second space because they position themselves in the long term, right? And the third thing is questioning, which is a little bit cheeky, but is very important, which is blockchain technology fundamental to execute this idea? And that's a very important question because what I'm seeing, especially from agencies when it comes down to like metaverse, is that they're getting the gaming decks and activations that they've been pitching for years now that didn't really stuck around because gaming wasn't interesting for brands or, for certain brands. And then they are changing the title to metaverse and then trying to sell that to the brands as will be a metaverse experience, right? Which isn't true. So is blockchain technology, and if you want to talk metaverse within Web3 only, where blockchain is the backbone of the whole thing, is blockchain technology fundamental to make this happen or not? Because if it's not, just go back and do what you're doing before. There's no point on doing this, right? So that's very important question because yes, it's hyped, yes, it's interesting, yes, maybe there's a lot of money to be made, but are we being true to ourselves? Are we doing this because we understand the space? Are we doing this because we want to push the space forward? Or we just want to tick a box, right? So that's something I'm always trying to push. The fourth step is going down the rabbit hole, right? So this is the most used word of 2022, right beside community, which is utility. So, what people get when they buy into this thing, right? What is their motive on buying into this? What is the benefit for them, right? Why should I spend $1,000? Why should I spend $500 in buying this thing from you? What are you giving to me that is so exciting that I want to be part of, apart from whatever digital stuff that, you think people want to collect? Let's look deeper into those things, right? Tech and platform. So how do we find the right tech partners? How do we find the right platforms for Metaverse, for example? Who are the right tech partners? What is the right blockchain? Let's tailor the use case we have with the best blockchains that are out there, right? So how do we go about looking into that? So we go really deep into those details. And then the other thing that I find really interesting is the go-to community aspect. So I feel that in Web2, we were looking for consumers and targets. And now in Web3, we are looking to community. We are looking to co-creating. We are looking to collaborators, right? So as soon as you understand that concept, how do you change your go-to-market to go to community? How do you change the mindset? I tend to say that Web3, the most important thing in Web3 for me is the mindset shift. So it's not the technology, right? The technology is important because it allows us to do stuff we haven't done before, but the mindset shift is important. So if we are not able to get to the dream we all have with Web3, Let it be Web 4, let it be Web 5, let it be Web 6. It doesn't matter. But the mindset matters. And that's what's shifting a lot. And that's what I love to see within the space, especially when you're talking to big brands and they're already getting it, right? And then the final fifth step, which is more obviously on the metric side, because it's not all about fluff, and we need to be really mindful on how we set the metrics and all of it. So what do we measure? In a point where we can measure anything, what should we care about? What are the KPIs? How does success look like, or what is success? So back to the project that Adidas has done, for example. Everyone in December was talking that Adidas has done $23 million in 24 hours. And that was like the headline in all medias, right? And you've seen like, oh, Nike has done a couple millions of revenue, or Gucci, or, Tiffany. And everybody's like really focusing on the actual revenue, where I think the most important thing we should be focusing right now, especially for brands, is how many people actually give a fuck of your project, right? How many people actually take part of it? How many people actually are behind your collection from a wallet perspective? How many people, what is the ratio from Adidas example, 30,000 NFTs, 23,000 unique wallets, right? So that's kind of like the metrics I'm looking at. How much time people are spending within your metaverse activation, how much, engagement is within your community, that being Discord or whatever platform you use. So I think that we need to reverse a little bit the model of coming from like a revenue only point of view to, start tracking and measuring based on attention, based on how people see it, how much people value what you're doing, because then becomes interesting. Because then again, you put yourself on the long term. Because with this community now that's core to edge of technology and edge of culture, how can you get together with them as a brand and start co-creating and start creating the future? I tend to say that big brands have been building for consumers the last 50 years, and now it's time for them to get the consumers and the community and the people closer to them to bring and build together the next 50. So, that's kind of like my message. And, I always tell brands to dig deeper, to look beyond, the JPEGs, to look beyond the hype and start finding what is in for them. It's early. Don't let people rush you. Don't let agencies try to bring you into FOMO saying that you're late and you need to do now. Just, take your time and get educated. And I feel that that's the best way and the most, sort of like organic way we're gonna push this space towards the direction we believe and we think it's needed. So yeah, that's my 5 steps. And thanks for having me.